Hello, hello, hello. Cool. All right. I think we're good. Are we good? Okay. Let's try this again. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my pseudoscience psychology. I would like to talk to you about liars. Now, liars was brought up to me because of my brother. My brother is not a liar, but he wanted to ask, he wanted to ask me to tell people about liars. Anyways, liars, right? Let me go through an acronym for you. An acronym that I like to call SEND IT. And yes, I made this acronym. S is for story or symptoms. E is for etiology. N is for neurobiology. D is for dynamics. And I and T, I put it together, is implement technique, right? We want to implement a technique for the symptoms and whatever, right? All right, cool. Follow along with me. First, let's talk about the symptoms in the story. So often I have come across certain people who have lied to me, right? And I remember distinctly that there was this one neighborhood kid. Her name was, let's say, Sarah. Sarah, for some reason, lied to me. She said she was 14 when in reality she was 12. Why did she lie to me? Did she hate me? Did I abandon her as soon as she lied to me? Did I do something wrong to make her feel like she had to lie to me? There's so many questions. People have come across this all the time. And now we're gonna talk about liars. What do we do about this relationship? By the way, this is the third time I recorded this. So obviously we know that liars break trust, right? Trust is an essential aspect to every relationship you will ever have in your life. As my a mentor once told me, he said, we go at the speed of trust. Now, trust is not a measure of speed, but you know what I mean. So let's talk about the actual etiology behind it. And if you're wondering what etiology means, here I'll spell it for you, maybe. Etiology. Etiology basically means the source, the beginning, the origins of a pathogen, of a disease. And so when you hear etiology, think of source, basically. Where did it come from, right? And so we're going to talk about the etiology of lying. What caused lying? So this is a shield, by the way, but a lot of our coping mechanisms, right? A lot of the way we figure out how trust works, a lot of the ways we know about how honesty works and how we should engage with other people in our relationships is from our parents. And this is, by the way, this is the mom and dad. I know my drawing is terrible, but please bear with me. I am not an artist. I am a wannabe psychologist. And so we have to realize that a lot of the coping mechanisms, a lot of the strategies we've taken to other relationships come from how our parents or guardians have modeled it for us. I'm not saying that's 100%, but a lot of it comes from this, right? And they actually show a lot of relationships between the compulsive lying mentality with the previous generation of that individual. Keep that in mind, that that's a part of the source. Lying is a defense mechanism, right? It is a protective ability. It creates distance from hostility. And that's why it's learned. When they see parents practicing the distance of hostility, they model that, they learn that, they understand it. Okay. Does that make sense? You got this? Cool. Thank you for bearing with me. Let's keep going. Next, we'll talk about the neurobiology, the brain of what's happening. All right, that's my brain. Can you see it? Yeah, you can see it. This is your frontal lobe, right? This is your prefrontal lobe, this is your back, basically a very simple structure, right? They did a study of these students who were doing a trial, and they were basically just trying to figure out like where and which part of the brain is a part of the lying process. And they found out it's in the frontal lobe, right? But here's the thing, is that the more you practice lying, the more you actually learn how to lie, actually becomes more integral. Intimate. It becomes more habitual, I guess is a better word for that. It becomes more habitual. It becomes automatic. It becomes easier. So when you don't know how to lie, for you, let's say, yeah, I know you're a straight and completely honest man and you've never lied in your life, but if you were to lie right now, it would actually cost a lot of energy and a lot of brain activity in the frontal lobe. But people who constantly practice lying, it slowly becomes automatic, easy. It's literally practice makes perfect. You become better at lying, right? It becomes easier to lie, especially if your brain is convinced that it's a survival mechanism. If they can, in the short term, survive the intense stress of the situation by lying. So that was the neurobiology. Now we're going to move on to dynamics. This is always my favorite part of any of my teachings from now on. I love dynamics. So imagine this, right? So imagine you have a line right here. This is a timeline. And in this timeline, you are trying to become a CEO at a business. And you're really excited about it. You see the salary, you see everything, you're like, man, that would be awesome for me to go in. But I'm actually starting from ground zero, right? Which means, I need a resume. I need a resume to tell people that I am qualified for this job. Here's the thing, right? You're not a CEO. You've never had any experience into being a CEO, but you really want this, right? And so what you do is you lie. You actually create a shortcut straight to becoming a CEO without any of the experience. You act like you are qualified in order to get to the position where a qualified person would get to. And so a lot of times you have to think of lying as a relational shortcut. So often the people who are lying, they're seeking not to be a CEO. They often seek, I don't know if you could read that. I don't know. Can you read that? They're seeking safety. They're seeking safety. They're seeking security. This is not everyone. Obviously, there's pathological liars. There's pathological liars that will manipulate the situation for them to have more power, right? They're still creating a shortcut to get to what they want. And that's also what very commonly people who are lying are trying to do. They want the safety. They want the security. They want the love, right? And so often, for instance, let's say I threw away my wife's favorite socks or something. And then she comes up and she says, where's my favorite socks? I notice that if I tell her the truth, then I'm going to lose the connection that I have with her. I'm going to lose the safety and security. And so I got to compromise and lie in order for me to live out my short-term security, safety in that moment. Because bearing the truth at that time isn't worth it. And your brain, your brain in the subconscious and executive function is dealing with how do I survive in that situation? What's the best outcome? And often lying wins if you've been practicing it and you learn to endure the long-term consequences of lying. So you have to be careful. Lying is a disease. Be careful. Obviously, on the moral sense, just don't lie, right? Okay, thank you. So that was the dynamics. Now, the real question is, what do you do when you run into this? How do you implement a technique to fight against people who are unsafe, who are lying, and how do you fight against it for yourself? Let's do the first one first. What you need to do is, you don't have to, you don't need to, but I would encourage you to read the book Safe People. Safe People deals with relationship issues and distrusting issues and people who are actually unsafe to be giving your vulnerable information to, right? You don't want to have an intimate relationship with someone who's manipulative, who is causing trouble in your life or is taking advantage of you or whatever. You have to lay down boundaries, right? And so essentially with people who are compulsively lying with you, or maybe they're lying for other manipulative reasons, right? What you need to do is you need to measure what the investment is into that person, right? You need to know exactly what are you trusting into that person? What are you giving up? Because you're giving up something every time you exchange information with that person. You don't want to go to a liar and tell them your deepest secrets about something because you don't trust them with it, right? And so if you're struggling to reestablish trust with this person that's lying often, do it very incrementally. Assuming you want to stay in a relationship, assuming you're a safe person, right? If you're insecure and you're unsafe and you're notorious for trauma dumping and stuff like that, no, lay down the boundary, don't engage in a relationship with that person, and disconnect, because that's not healthy for anyone. That's not even healthy for the person who's lying, right? You don't want to have a relationship with someone where you're both spiraling, right? You need to make sure you know what you're investing into the person, and you yourself need to be a safe person. And you also need to know how to create a safe environment for that person as well. Very incrementally, very safe. You want it to be emotionally empathetic. They're likely insecure or hurt. They likely have had bad relationships in the past in which when they did tell the truth, they suffered for it, right? But for you, let's say you're a liar, which I feel like you're probably not watching this if you are a liar, but let's just say you are a liar. You need to find safety. And you need to recognize that the only way for you to heal out of your insecurities is for you to implement intimacy in an intimate relationship with someone that's trustworthy. That's why we have therapists. That's why we have even like pastors to counsel with. That's why we have, I don't know, like best friends could be that, you know, depending on the relationship, right? And so safety, safety, safety. You want to make sure that you are safe. You want to make sure you're honest. You want to make sure that you are keeping yourself safe using boundaries and saying no when it is when you need to, right? That's another book. Oh yeah, by the way, the book is written by Dr. Cloud and Dr. Townsend. They are very good with relationships, or at least, and for the most part. I don't know everything about what they teach, but I would support them. So that was my video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you can leave comments in the comment section if you would like to add any more to this, because obviously I didn't cover everything. I just covered what I think is essential to know when engaging with a relationship with someone who's a liar, and a very simple, basic level. Cool? Are we cool? Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Did we make it? Are we good? Are we dancing? Are we dancing? I feel like I'm in like a One Direction music video. Not that I watch One Direction, but you know. Baby, you like